anyone who doesn't know me, I'm Kelsey, and when I was 21, I went on a solo backpacking trip to South America. Chances are, if you are clicking on this video, you're interested in traveling alone as well. So this was kind of my experience and some advice or pointers that I would give going into it. I had booked a one-way ticket to South America. I had no plan other than point A, small village 4 hours south of Bogota, and then the rest of my trip, I didn't have any clue what I was doing. I wanted to stay gone as long as possible, and here's my experience. The number one thing that I would say is going into it, remember that this is your dream and something that you desire and not anyone else's, because traveling alone can be scary, right? So you already are facing that mental factor within yourself. Never mind when you tell people you love that you're going to travel alone, you're gonna get some interesting reactions. Of course it comes from a place of love, but it is very easy for people to put their fears on you, and I'm sure that they will. Which is why I booked my ticket before telling anyone. I didn't tell them that I booked it. Because I knew myself enough to know that I may potentially be talked out of it from people whose opinions I value. But at the end of the day, you have to ask yourself, if they have not done the thing that you are wanting to do, how much advice do you want to take from them? And that's just my opinion. I have a travel journal here, and I kind of just wrote a lot throughout this trip. I talked to my friend today about traveling, and I was trying to motivate her to just do it, and she mentioned how everyone in her life is making her think she shouldn't. And this made me think about how everyone in my life was doing the same to me before I left. But as much as I wanted to agree and succumb to their fears, I didn't. Instead, I ate their damn fears in my own too. I swallowed them whole and chased my dreams, because no one is me, and no one other than me knows what I want and what I'm capable of. I am so proud of myself for blocking out the noise and doing it. I have learned so much about myself and life. I was experiencing a lot of hesitation leading up to the trip, and for years and years I had wanted to do this, and I just had never found someone to do it with. It was really appealing, the thought of doing it on your own, because you can travel as you wish and you don't have to account for like others as well. But I had never really just done it because I let the outside noises get to me. Going into it, just know that people are going to try to talk you out of it because it's unfamiliar territory and they themselves have not done it. 2, I would say it is heavily about how you carry yourself, how you hold yourself, and your mindset going into it. A huge thing for me was, no matter how you are feeling inside, to on the outside carry yourself very well. I kind of had this theory, and I'm calling it the mountain lion theory because it just makes sense. Mountain lions can see you, and chances are you will never see them unless they want you to. They will be stalking you and you have no idea. I felt like I had to go into this with that mindset with human beings. Whether it was the case or not, I would just constantly tell myself, okay, you are a female, you are alone, you have a backpack, you're white, you don't blend in. You're kind of a target as it is, so act as though someone is always watching you and you don't see that they're watching you. I would contain myself in public, even if I was panicking inside, if I was lost. There were many situations where I knew I was not in a great place. I was definitely in danger. Every hair on my body was sticking up, where I was completely lost. On the inside, I was freaking out. On the outside, I was like, I have to look like I know where I'm going. What I would do, never pull my phone out in public. I would locate a bathroom, and once I got in the stall, I would allow myself a minute, maybe 2-minute panic break to be like, what are you doing? You're in over your head. Where are you? Is this a dream? What the actual... And then I'd be like, okay, that's not going to get me anywhere, so now what? And it was always the now what? You figure it out. Then I'd walk out of there knowing where I was going, because I actually did this time. You have to act as though someone is waiting for you to let your guard down. We want to believe in the good in people, right? And there were plenty of amazing people along this trip. There were also some people who are waiting to benefit off of your weak moments. For example, in Ecuador, there's groups of people who will say you're walking on the street. Someone on the roof will throw something on you that looks like bird crap. And let's say a 70-year-old man, an 8-year-old girl, and an innocent-looking woman will come up to you and start helping you clean the bird crap, and suddenly your camera's gone, your passport's gone, and they're gone, and it's like, what just happened? This actually happened to one of my friends that I met along the way. He got everything taken from him that way. That's my point there. Point number 3 is to know that it's not always going to be as glorified as social media makes it look. Myself included, like, I could post something in the mountains of Peru, but little did people know I had the worst food poisoning of my life and was puking my brains out in the bus station before taking 42 hours of bus to get there. So there's going to be a lot of roadblocks, at least if you were backpacking by yourself and not in a more developed country. Of course, it depends on where you are. For myself, I was not in very touristy places either. I did a couple touristy things. The longest I was in a main city was probably a couple weeks maybe. But everything else, I was going to tucked away places of these countries, and oftentimes I was the only foreigner, where I would take a tuk-tuk into town and people would record me and stare. And so it really just depends on location. And eventually you just get more, you adapt and you just become more resilient. And it's like, oh, okay, we'll figure this out. Yes, I think that it looks so glorified on other people's social media platforms when you see them solo traveling, but you don't see the time where they got assaulted in a taxi cab, or like they slept on the floor of the Amazon rainforest with just a net and there was no toilet paper, running water, soap. So that was how I was traveling, which is not to discourage you or make you think otherwise, but don't go into it like everything's gonna be like sunshine and rainbows. It is mentally taxing as it is to navigate foreign land in a different language, and again, just depends on where you're going. Personally, South America was amazing. I met some of the kindest people, such a rich culture, and I highly recommend it. This brings me to point 4, which is allow for life's unexpected changes and embrace them, I would say. Because this kind of goes back to my first point where I had no plan. This helped me a lot with just life, but especially this trip. Going with the ebbs and flows of traveling in life, and every day it was different, unexpected things happening. And had I resisted them and tried to stick with a rigid plan, I would have missed out on some of the most beautiful parts of my trip. When I really started embracing the changes, and even though in my mind I had plans, it was like, okay, those are just plans. When you feel a tug towards this, go towards this, and just kind of follow your gut. So one example of that was when I was in Colombia. I was supposed to stay in this hostel for one night in Cali. It ended up being a lot longer because I fell in love with salsa, and I met this girl who we became super close. I was supposed to be there for one day, and then I was going to teach English on the border of Venezuela. She ended up telling me how she was going to the Galapagos, and I was like, oh, I was just in Ecuador, like, I have this plan, and then I kind of slept on it and was like, no, I'm gonna go to the Galapagos with her. So we went together, and that was an experience of a lifetime. Had I gone with my little plan, then I wouldn't have experienced that. It just goes to show that you don't have to follow a set itinerary. In fact, I encourage you to not plan much of anything. So many of us want control, and especially with something this uncertain, it makes us feel better if we have control over what we're doing. The second that I let go and was like, I'm just gonna go with what feels right, I had the most amazing experiences. I guarantee you that they were better than what I had planned. I'm going to segue into point 5, which is my personal opinion: slow travel. Initially, I had gone into it thinking that I wanted to check as many countries as I could off of my list. Go to as many places as I could with the money that I had. This changed completely. I actually ended up traveling really, really slow, where I was staying in these places for a month, 3 weeks, in one little city in one country. So it was like, the first place, I loved it. I lived with a Colombian family. I taught English in this village, and I made the most amazing connections, all of whom I still talk to this day. And I ended up staying there over a month, a little over a month. You really get to experience a place when you do something like that. It just felt like I was living there and not just quickly passing through to say that I went there. You know what I mean? It just made all the difference for me. Again, we all want to do so much so quick. And for some people, not telling you what to do. For some people, fast travel is great. They like it. They're more go, go, go. And slow travel, I just felt like I really got to immerse myself in that area and really experience local life. Everything that I was doing was pretty much volunteer opportunities until would in between take little, like go see something that I wanted to see. But majority of my trip was just volunteering in different areas. So like I volunteered in Colombia, Peru, Ecuador, all different things. And I would get accommodation in exchange for my hours. And also that was a really good way to meet, like I said, locals and to really be a part of the culture. Really recommend, whatever you're planning, to maybe do a third of that and to take the time to really enjoy a place. And of course, I had people in my life ask me, how are you affording this? You're so lucky. This ain't luck. It's hard work. No, but really, I was living in an apartment at the time, bartending and waitressing. I'm not someone who went to college, and I was paying rent and then tucking away cash on the side. Like I had a little travel fund. I made it work. I handed in the keys to my apartment, quit my job, and I took off and just used my savings. Like I said, I was volunteering, so I was getting accommodation. Sometimes that was on the Amazon. Just a net over you and a tarantula waking you up in the morning, which I will put that video in here. Wasn't anything fancy, but I didn't want that because I got the experiences. Again, it all depends on you and how you are willing to travel. I was dirtbagging it, like really, really was. I was not picky about accommodation so long as I got to travel, you know, so it's like you have to find your give and takes. What are your non-negotiables? What are you willing to kind of mend and take out of your budget? And it's just about being smart with your money, and there are plenty of ways to travel in a budget-friendly way. I also barely took any flights. I went to Colombia and then Ecuador. I took bus. Hours, the amount of buses that I took, hours of bus, and then they drop you off and then you walk across the border. So you go through migration check, like across the border, and then you take another bus to your destination. I saved so much money doing that. Granted, there were times where I had to take flights. There's ways around a lot of things, and you can save money in a lot of areas, especially when you have one backpack. You're not buying things, and if you are, meaningful things, and you're not partaking in as much consumerism as we do here. So yeah, those are my experiences, my little tidbits, advice. I think that everyone should travel alone at one point or another. It doesn't have to be extreme. It can be what you're comfortable with. I would recommend going a little bit out of your comfort zone and just watch how much you'd learn about yourself and the world and your place in it. Big believer in solo travel. Just do it.
I'm fully packed and I leave in a couple hours.
It's something that I've dreamed of since I can remember. I have always wanted to travel to different countries by myself and experience different cultures and be a part of something bigger than myself. And that's exactly what I'm going to be doing. My first stop is Colombia. I'm teaching kids English there.
That's what I'm not going.
This is how excited I am. I'm nervous too, but
A little bit nervous about the safety aspect. Not following my dreams scares me a lot more than death does. So when the doubts start kicking in, you just gotta push those aside and take it 1 second at a time. And exactly when you are afraid is exactly when you should jump. Just do it scared.
chase your dreams no matter what obstacles are in your way, no matter what anyone in your life is telling you. It is only you. You get to create the life that you desire.
I'm moving far away to a sunny place where it's just you and me. Feels like we're in a dream. You know